You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. The Five Rings Podcast 2016 Rio Summer Olympics edition on the Sports Podcasting Network.
Kevin, it's here. It's here.
It's live, it's here, and we're watching games. And I have to say, Duane, the blue and the green of the color scheme of Rio for the whole imagery of those games makes for great television already. I've been falling in love all throughout the morning.
Look, yeah, one of the great elements of the Olympics is it makes you it's an extended tourism video for the city and church, and that's obviously a big part of how they focus things on. And obviously in that road race today, Rio looks like Rio. It's beautiful.
Beautiful, hard, hot, heavy climbs. It's going to be interesting. There's still a lot of racing to go, but it's a stunning venue. Speaking of stunning, let's just go back quickly on the opening ceremony last night. Duane, we didn't make it all the way through because, quite honestly, it was not. I don't want to bash the actual ceremony, but I felt very, very underwhelmed, especially when you had to ask me who's the guy who lighting who's the guy? Like, we're all like wondering, he cannot be the guy lighting. Like, for sure he's not lighting it. For sure it's not him. And then he descends the torch. Oh no, it's him. Who is he?
Yeah, well, the story's a good one, actually.
Yes, the story is very, very good. You're right.
Yeah, it is worthwhile. Although I suspect there were rumors that came up during the day that Pele had said that he was too ill, that he wasn't feeling well, which is kind of ominous, actually, but that he wasn't good enough to light the torch. So I suspect the original plan probably was to hand it off to Pele, who would have walked out. If you noticed, beside the cauldron, there was like a little area that had like a covering over, and it looked like someone could be standing in there that could emerge a la Muhammad Ali.
David Copperfield, but yeah.
I suspect that was supposed to be Pele. It was a little weird, although Marta was one of the athletes that brought the flag in. It was a little weird to not have a footballer as part of the final torch carriers in a country like Brazil, but maybe they're still angry at them from a few summers ago.
So. Well, you had Guga Kuerten. I was happy to see Guga Kuerten, a famous tennis player of the 90s, early 2000s. He won a couple of major tournament, and he ran in the stadium with the torch, and he was really emotional, and he gave it to De Lima, who's the one who led. Well, actually, no,
there's a female basketball
player, yeah, and then she handed it to De Lima, and De Lima like that. We all had that feeling, and if you were on Twitter that instant, it was actually quite hilarious. Like, okay, they give to him. Who is he? Everybody's searching for it. Everybody retweets the identity. He's like, okay, so he's gonna go. He's going to run up the stairs, and on top of the stairs, he's going to hand it to somebody like we're used to. And you just never hand it to anyone.
All right, well, I think that I'm a little less cold in overall ceremonies as you are. I wasn't. They're certainly not memorable in any real way. I doubt. Like, there'll be one of those ones that I'll just have fleeting images of, maybe like those guys running up the buildings there.
What are they called? Like them threading, like with green avatar-like images.
But the one thing, I don't know if we'll remember it by detail, but sort of the idea that they decided to have this environmental theme throughout it, and it was political in a way that most opening ceremonies aren't. So that's kind of, I think, how many people will remember it, and it's a bit strange. And I was reading some of the reaction on Twitter, especially south of the border, where the idea of climate change and things like that is not universally accepted.
Oh, I thought about the idea of having your opening ceremony showing in the tape delay.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what allowed me to watch this as it was playing out, because it was an hour behind. But nonetheless, it's not going to play well for everyone. And it's certainly, as I was saying, I in our little show last night and after the fact to our studio audience there, as we were talking before bed, that I think that it was a ceremony that was designed more with the crowd in the stands in mind than it was with the TV audience in mind. And that's kind of the opposite of what we've seen the last few, where it's a spectacle to the world. And that kind of is, I think, where the underwhelming nature of it came. But, it is for them. It is their ceremony, and it's just the damn ceremony. So ultimately, we move on.
Exactly. But now it started competitions. Even medals have already been handed out. And yeah, so it's a go, Dwayne. We've been talking about it for months and months, almost years. Well, actually, years. We are in the Olympics of Rio. It has begun.
Absolutely. And this is our format. The Olympic show will be a little shorter, I think, than the weekday show because, well, it's because it's the weekend, folks. But nonetheless, we are going to get you something out there just to focus on Kevin and I's voice doing our gold, silver, bronze, and wood medal. If you're new to us, that format is as follows. We award gold, silver, and bronze medals for the first, second, and third best overall performance in the entire games based on our own whatever criteria we choose to use. And we're a little bit open in it too. It doesn't even necessarily have to be an athlete. It can be an individual event that happened in a game. It could be a fan, even. It could be
a thing. It could be anything.
Yeah, it's something to do. It's a very open concept, but by and large, it's using the gold, silver, bronze as our template. We award it as our first, second, and third what we thought, and then the wood medal is a negative. It is something that frustrated us that we thought needs improvement. And again, it's not necessarily targeting an individual athlete. It can be, it's been the TV coverage often in the past. It's been a bit of an issue with it.
Wait till we get to my wood.
Yes, exactly. So there you go. It can be many different things, something that maybe needs improvement, something that hasn't worked out ideally. It can be an athlete too. We're not saying we're not trying to kid glove it here. If someone completely underperformed, then we're probably going to mention it, especially if they were a gold medal contender or something and it didn't work out. It's not to bash them, but it's the reality of being honest, right?
Yep, exactly. So how about we start this 2016 Rio wood, bronze, silver, and gold medal, Duane? How about your wood first?
All right. And Kevin and I have not conferred with each other, so we may have the same one in this. We don't know.
We know each other now, so I'm pretty sure we don't have the same ones, but who knows?
Well, yeah, I think I know. We're probably focusing on different competitions this morning. Anyway, the wood medal. My wood medal is the rowing venue. Rowing venue this morning, they quite nearly had to postpone it. A boat capsized. It has not been ideal. They have a new stat that comes out, stroke rate, which is a stat they've used in rowing for years, but you're able to see it on the screen. And we know what a world-class stroke rate is versus what's happening today. And it was 25% less today because the water was so choppy. Now, I understand that you can't control the weather, and there's going to be an element of wind and elements that are part of any regatta, water, sailing, whatever. That's going to be part of the factor. But what you can control is where you're hosting this thing. And it is this drop-dead gorgeous course, the rowing course. There's a mountain in the background. It's stunning waves to look at.
Like there's waves. And I've seen one thing we never see. I've seen like a skull, like perpendicular with the race. I'm like, what's going on? You're not going to see world record time anytime soon on that course for sure, just because of the waves. You lose momentum. You don't get the same friction on the water to get your speed and to keep it really high. You lose everything when you take a little bump. And yeah, it's such a difficult venue for the rowing, and it's not just going to be rowing, the row, the canoe, all those open water venue in this in this competition is going to be affected by that course. And you wonder, because it looks, it's a beautiful day, it's not like even stormy or anything, it's a little windy, but you'll get that by the sea. So you're wondering if it's going to be this way for at least the next week.
No, precisely. It's a wind tunnel in there. And I mean, it starts, the light boats are going to be especially affected. So when you get into your C1s and your C1s and your K1s on that side of things, and in the single sculls in this one, it's a disaster. There was a long shot down the course that they were showing at the Canadian rower in her qualifying heat this morning, and you could see her just struggling just to even keep the boat straight in the middle. And this is an athlete that's likely to be in a final. God help the ones that are like a little bit lower down. They're struggling just to survive, to not drown, basically. And that's not something that an Olympic course, the pretty's nice, but I'm sure there was a river or a lake or something that was inland that would have been a lot more appropriate than just sort of going for the TV image in here. And that's my wood medal. Kevin, yours?
Mine is the ceremony broadcast as a whole. And I do not want to blame CBC because you can only do so far with what you're given. But the lack of information throughout the ceremony, giving it to us, not necessarily on the audio, because they were doing their best, Peter Mansbridge and Scott Russell. But what I'm wondering is how much they were told themselves when when singers were performing, we had no identity, no lower third, no thing that we're used to in the production values of it that may have been on the Olympic international feed side, that you don't have information of who's singing. So we're all scrambling trying to figure out what was going on, and it was something missing that we're not used to. The lack of presentation values, information, identity cues, all those things that we're so used to in a live broadcast to give us information to truly enjoy it at 100%. We were left scrambling on our phone and our computers to figure out who was performing and when.
Yeah, no, we were talking about that pretty openly in our little broadcast last night. It was, I think that exactly what it was is they didn't give as much pre ceremony information out that they might have in the past. So we
because it was throughout the board though, and while NBC might be a lot of flack for not doing live, they had time to figure out who they were. They had time to put it on, but not anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, you were just getting like a singer, and if they knew what they were singing, like we knew who certain people were, obviously, because they were famous, but most of them were only famous in Brazil, which is nothing wrong with that. But it's like I was talking about the Vancouver ceremony. Like, who would know who Ashley McIsaac or even Katie Lang or an artist like that was, and if you weren't from Canada or North America. So when they performed, you had to have that under there so the rest of the world can learn about these people.
Exactly.
Katie Lang's performance in Vancouver was stunning, and I'm sure that she gained fans because of it. But these folks yesterday, we couldn't because we didn't know who they were unless we took the time to find out.
No, that's exactly. Outside of Giselle, we didn't know who anybody was. So that's my wood medal. It's not based on the CBC. It's more the ceremony as a whole. And yes, the ceremony was less glamorous. You could say there was a very smaller budget, but apparently the whole budget was spent on the fireworks. About 20 minutes of fireworks lighting up the entire sky. And I'm not even sure still that there wasn't some pre-recorded shots mixed into all of that, because the plane aspect, which was probably the most spectacular of it, the way it was shot with the fake coming out of the stadium, that was very spectacular. But I'm not even convinced that those fireworks that seemed to last 10 minutes were not some of them pre-recorded and mixed in to the fact for the TV audience.
Yeah. Well, even when they ran the flame in, which they often do, it's clearly pre-recorded. Giselle and the Tongan flag bearer for a
my God.
Between the two of them, they have satisfied every gender and orientation out there in terms of the hotness of it. And Brazil is known as a sexy country, so hey, we had a little
the sex, the sex of those games, the sex of this game, the biggest lapses in last night, basically.
Exactly, a lot of Freudian slips on that one, and again. Both genders, all sexual orientations would have been covered between
the Tongan,
Giselle walking down there with that dress and the
Tongan like
with oiled skin.
Yes. 3 bottles of baby oil all on him, and he's like, guess what? It's a tradition, and you know what? I'm gonna make the most of it.
Everyone was happy in terms of those last night. All right, Kevin, let's move into the more positive stuff. I'll throw to you first, and then I'll throw my bronze after that. So, What is your bronze medal?
The Rugby 7 competition. So far this morning, I've watched one full match and half of another one, and it's really interesting. It really fits well, the rugby competition. The 7, more importantly, the fact that it's a little smaller, feels a little smaller, it really fits the Olympic venue type of feeling, the vibe, and I'm really impressed with the competition. We all imagine rugby, the tackles, but no, it's an intricate game. It's a game of speed, of elusiveness, and I like the way this competition is going. Yes, because Canada won 45-0 against Japan. It helps. But for Canada, it's a good way to start the tournament. But this competition as a whole is really captivating and is really TV friendly for the Olympics. And it's good to have team sports that are TV friendly and are short in their time span. Because 25 minutes, game's over, 30 minutes, boom, it's done. And it's really Olympic-y, if that is a word.
Yeah, well, it's also, this is even spread out a bit towards what you'd see in a world event. It's over 3 days, and they can crunch them into 2 if they want. And on the world events, so you have Canada, for instance, will play 2 games today and 1 game tomorrow, and then if I'll use that term loosely because they won 45-0 today, they're going to qualify for the knockout round. That will be the day after that, so they'll play for their medals that day. But it's as you said, it's a neat little event. I knew it would be a neat event. A lot of people are excited about it. It's good to start with it, and it's also great to just have a tackling sport back in the Olympics. There's not that's a type of sport that is underrepresented in these games, and that's something that is worthwhile. And certainly, I'm happy as well And as someone who really wants to see that gender divide closed within the Olympics, that it's the women that get out there first, because I think women rugby, I love women rugby players. I think that they really represent the type of female athlete that I love, just tough and determined and breaking all those stereotypes. They shouldn't have those stereotypes out there, but they are. So they completely tear them down, and they're just amazing athletes to watch. And that's what's on right now. So that's a good one, Kevin. I'm going to go a little political on this one. I am going to give some credit to the opening ceremony for having the whatever the Portuguese word is for the
well, what they use in a lot of games, right? Like tennis plays with tennis balls. So
yes, to get out there and put the global warming stuff out there. This is not debatable, folks. I have a geography degree. I took environmental science courses 20 years ago that talked about the stuff that we're still being denied today. There is so much research backing it up. It's ridiculous that anyone questions it. I'm glad that Brazil is, they're not guilty themselves of this stuff. That's
for sure.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest polluters of the world used to be Brazil.
Yeah, and even they sort of alluded to it, I think, when they were doing that opening ceremony. If you saw it, like I rewatched it this morning, and when the Europeans came in, they blamed the Europeans a little bit because indigenous people, they lived for years without messing things up. You see that white going across the green, and that was symbolic of the forest being chopped down and the environmental destruction that was happening there. So they were taking themselves out of the equation. So I just think it was worthwhile. And let's not kid ourselves. Politics are part of sports. And I don't even think something like science, which is what global warming, climate change is science. Science isn't political anyway. It's stating what's known to be true and backed up by solid research. And it's sad that it's daring to do that, but it is, and I give them credit for trying to do something more than just entertain with that ceremony, even if it sometimes didn't work to its entire abilities.
When you saw what I call the outrageous PowerPoint presentation, you saw the polar ice cap melt, you saw data, the water rise, and you saw all places of the world, including the United States and Florida, where there's a lot of deniers of climate change, almost disappeared because of the water rise level. And you see as well Rio almost disappeared. And that's where it finishes. And it was like almost a shock. And we were watching it. And you can listen to our commentary on the Five Rings podcast on the Sports Podcasting Network right now. We had that idea of, it's doom and gloom. But yeah, you kind of have make that shock value to make people realize, you know what, if we can teach you something, is look at what's going on and be careful how you handle things going forward, and trying to do your best and trying to do your part.
All right. Fair enough. I will start the silver medal and give you mine. And I maybe cheated a little bit. I don't know. You can tell me if I did or not. But the Olympic competition did in fact start on Wednesday and Thursday with the soccer tournament. There was also archery yesterday. So there are a few things before the opening ceremonies, and one of them involved a very famous athlete that has become symbolic with the Olympic movement here in Canada, the flag bearer at the close of the London Games, a hero to many Canadian soccer fans and just Canadians in general, Christine Sinclair, who found the fountain of youth somewhere. She hasn't looked great over the past few years, but her performance on Wednesday was perhaps the best performance she's had since the famous hat-trick game in the semifinals of the last Olympics. And as I said, found the fountain of youth and gave a lot of fans of that program, which is an incredibly popular team in this country, a little bit of hope that maybe they could repeat the performance in London. So for Christine Sinclair's goal and for her nutmeg assist and for just her overall presence on the field on the Wednesday's victory over Australia, 2-0 for Canada, she receives my silver medal of the first day of the games.
The Fountain of Youth, better known as the Fontaine de Jouvence. We all thought it was located in France. Well, guess what? It's somewhere close to Sao Paulo, where Christine Sinclair stayed just a day before the game.
Exactly. So that is why. And the Canadian women will play Zimbabwe today. If they win that game, unbelievably, they will have clinched a spot in the quarterfinals. Hours, not even 24 hours after the opening ceremonies. And I don't think I know for a fact. I've watched the Olympics long enough in my lifetime. A Canadian team has never done that before.
No, exactly. My silver, Duane, is the cauldron itself, the one in the stadium with the it's very weird the way it's built, but it's almost like a object that's constantly moving, never stops moving. It's regenerating itself and it's recuperating. It's like something built out of nothing. And it's really weird to describe, but that kind of like a sun, that's what it's made to represent. Almost like a sun, almost regenerating himself, like a renewable energy almost behind the cauldron, which the cauldron itself is lit with an hybrid system. So it's very low emission and low combustion fuel. So it's very interesting, and the whole intricate design behind it, it's hard to explain on the radio, but you've seen it, you understand. It's almost like a universal movement behind the flame, and it's quite intricate, and it's very, very breathtaking. Almost, we're like 10 minutes just looking at it, lost, and like got the fix looking at it, and we're almost in a trance.
Yeah, it's become the new trend to not just put a straight old normal cauldron up. It has to be fancy and designed, and certainly it does in fact fit the image of the games and the whole environmental aspect of it with the tree plant and all that. And the tree planting isn't on mine, but that could play into sort of what I was saying earlier. So it ties into that, and it certainly is a very pretty thing. So I'm glad you put it there. I don't think I would have thought of it myself, but you're right. It was a unique aspect that was one of the highlights and one of the things they did well as part of the ceremonies last night.
And they didn't miss it up. They got the 5 rings correctly with the sort of trees during Bach's speech, and they lit the cauldron correctly. So they got one up on Vancouver and Sochi.
Yeah, there you go. And again, it's somewhat daring to do the rings the way they did it with just the trees, the green, because traditionally you're going to have your colors in there, the 5 colors of the Olympics, right? And to go outside that takes a little bit of guts to do that. So we applaud them in that. All right, let's move to the top of the podium on this first day of competition. Well, halfway through the first day of competition, as I'm seeing on my TV, the swimming has just literally
Just begun.
kick off swimming. Do you jump off? It just started literally.
You
First
dive.
Yes, they dived off. It dived off. Anyway, I'll start with my gold, Kevin. And you already sort of spoke to it. It was the return of rugby to the Olympics. I will focus it a bit more and say just Canada's performance in that first game. A dominating performance. Absolutely lived up to the hype. They are, as I said in my preview, amongst the gold medal contenders, certainly an absolute medal contender. In this country, we're used to seeing our contenders sometimes get lost in the hype of their environment. The new Canada, that's the old Canada now, maybe, I think, because the new Canadian Olympian, they don't necessarily choke. For years, we were known for that. And that team, 45-0, they did not choke. They have one more game today. The big game's tomorrow against Great Britain. If they win that, then they're in pretty good shape to at least make a medal game. And, it was, the women's soccer team, as I said earlier, were massively popular for playing in a medal game a few years ago or 4 years ago. It's rare for a Canadian team to do that. This rugby team certainly looks like they're in line. So they are my gold medal winner for today. Kevin, you?
My gold medal is not because I'm a fan of the sport, not because I'm a fan of the country more than other one, but it's the first goal of the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games. Shooting 10-meter rifle, United States Virginia Trasher. Okay, insert your shooting rifle joke right here. It's done. But she won the first gold medal of the 2016 Rio game. She looked like she's like 14 years old and perfect shots ahead of the other competitors. And she won the first medal of 2016. So she will forever be known as the first medalist of those games. Virginia Trasher from the United States.
Yes, and look, the Olympics giveth and they taketh away. The United States currently has the only gold medal of these games, but they also just lost to Fiji in rugby. So there you go. A country that, don't you love that about the Olympics? Fiji just beat the United States of America in a sport, and that's just not going to happen many or very often, right? And it's kind of fun.
Nope, unless you're American. It's probably the only sport that it's ever going to happen to. For the next
and that's another
years.
Reason why rugby needed to go in, because it gives places like Fiji's the team that qualified here, but there's lots of those islands would have a chance in the past.
Samoa and all that, yeah. If New Zealand, I think New Zealand is New Zealand in the competition of rugby?
Oh yeah, New Zealand, they're the only team that won by more. Yeah, real quick, we talk about rugby a lot, and I highly recommend watching this. It'll be on the rest of the afternoon. The scores so far is Canada won 45-0. Great Britain beat Brazil 29-3. if I can get the computer to work here. New Zealand beat Kenya 52-0, and I can't scroll up to get the other one. I know,
but it's fine. But Duane, by the way, we mentioned this in our prior shows, but if this is our first day one Five Rings Daily, if you're wondering how to get the best out of your computer for the Olympics, Google Olympic and whatever sports and result. And this year, Google has a very interesting kind of like a widget that it directs you right away to whatever sports you're Googling and in real time stats. So it's very helpful if you're anywhere in the world and you're looking for some Olympic coverage.
Yeah, that's where I am, and the scores would be there and would be wonderful. But my computer, unfortunately, is having some slow problems right now, so we'll let that be. But you can find that easy enough yourself. It is a compelling tournament to do. Kevin, any final thoughts on this Saturday before we say goodbye?
The men's road race is going on as we speak. It's a very long circuit. Yesterday during the show, I mentioned that it's usually if it's around 150 kilometers, it's 3-4 hours. It's a longer race. It's about 270 something, if I'm not mistaken. It's a long circuit with some climb in Fort Copacabana. So it's going to be interesting to see who wins. There was a breakaway. The breakaway is being reeled in the past few hours. I predict, and that's what I would expect, is on the penultimate or the last climb of this race, big attacks, probably Chris Froome of Great Britain will try to go on the attack and get clear. Probably 3-4 of those riders will get clear, form a small bunch that will climb together, trying to attack each other and kind of do a sprint almost to the line. But I expect this to be a very selective few, probably the best climbers in this bunch.
All right, and it is officially the Olympics because swimming is on my TV. On that note, Kevin, let's say goodbye for today. We'll be back tomorrow for a similar length of show. We'll work on the time and we'll tweet that out. The weekends are a little bit more open. We have to work around some schedules to read this. We're going to try and get out at 11 o'clock whenever we can, but we'll let you know certainly on our social media, which is at 5 Rings Podcast. Also, you can follow myself at 24th minute, 24th minute, or Kevin at Kev Laramee, Laramee. And otherwise, Kevin, as always, I'll have you say goodbye.
Until next time, on your podium, folks. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.